nice, very nice. On WCCR, coming to you from Australia for Revolution Radio and Freedom Slips. No! On Revolution.radio. Haha! Got you there. It's actually on Revolution.radio, everybody. It is home to fresh, unadulterated ideas and conversation in the chat room, and a place to get your merch if you're so inclined. So go on there. Why don't you buy a Shiny Set Out t-shirt? That's cool. I'd love to sell just one. Just one. This is show number
584.
84.
That's correct.
Right. 584. It's 480 and 500. And we're going to talk about it in the second hour. But the Third Reich and the Occult again, part 9, coming up after this first news hour. You can catch us on air online on your smart device, so grab an app to listen anywhere or listen at home on the Grace Tabletop Digital Radio. If you missed Solar's show, do not fret. Do not fret.
Don't fret.
She had Amy Hollum, and they'll be doing audio forensics. That sounds really interesting. I'm going to catch that one. That sounds really. I'm always reminded of the white noise sound recordings. Anyway, what's also great, in case you did miss it, you could have, you missed it maybe. You can go ahead and go to the archives, which are now free. Freelicious. Well, the price is right. Well, that's right. First they suck in all the freebies, and then they bring down the hammer. No, not at all. It stays free. It has been free for quite a while now, actually. So go on in there and check out the archives. That's right. My vocal range is available for parties, birthdays, bar mitzvahs, and christenings. That's right. I'll do that.
Weddings, now, parties, anything.
Anything. And don't forget, this is Listener Fun Radio, which means we need your support. Please donate any which way you can. Bitcoin, like any cryptocurrency, is good, I guess. Gold, silver, gold and silver, diamonds, regular cash, money orders, whatever you like. This is a non-governmental radio station, also non-GNO. It's also non-corporate, so really independent, which is pretty cool. Before we start broadcasting at you in anger, though, we'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land from which we broadcast, and for Dave.
It's the Dark Young people.
Thank you, sir. And for myself here in the sunny but cold Pemulwuy, the Dirac people. I believe Pemulwuy was actually a Dirac warrior, but I got to look that up. And with that, we would like to pay our respects to elders past, present, and future. Dave, how about them apples?
I like all of those apples, but you know what? A juicy red apple is nice, but not every apple is red.
Not every apple is red. Not all that glitters is gold. What?
Yeah.
Do you actually know where that came from?
Is it Arabian?
No. I was actually blown away when I found the source for this quote. It was a poem by J.R.R. Tolkien in The Lord of the Rings.
Tolkien?
Not all that,
really?
All that glitters is not gold. Yeah. Amazing, right? I had no idea. But yeah. Hey, tell me, how is it that every week we sing to new lows of insanity? How?
Because every week we reset. The world resets the low bar, and they've still got to go under it. Yeah, that's it. They're still, who knew? I thought it was the high bar that was the thing that was, but I think they're resetting the low bar to the low and the high bar to the low, and who knows? That's the new norm. They're done.
I think we need a shovel. Because I think they buried the bar. Okay, we need a shovel now just to find it.
At what point does the low end up being the high on the other side of the planet?
Good question.
Yeah.
I like it. Soon? Very soon? That's just crazy.
The reason
I don't know.
The reason why we keep saying it is because in an educated right mind, you couldn't have written this. You couldn't have written where we're at right now. If you go back 10 years, you'd just laugh if I tried to tell you that this is the way it was going to be. It's preposterous, you would remark. Really? Not a chance. Russia going to war with people on its own? On annexing stuff? Just taking land it had gifted to others and we're taking it back. But it's annexing, it's not war. And it's because of the Nazis. That's why.
I watched this report, and I might have been Four Corners, but they had a crew, not a Four Corners crew, but a Russian news crew in Russia interviewing people or trying to interview people. And to your point,
because they don't want to say anything out of scope because
well,
you're not exactly. KGB.
So you can't get anyone to criticize on camera. That's
not government. That's right.
Yeah, but quite a bit of support for the war, in fact. And this is just regular people, right?
Yeah.
It could be just your grandma walking down the road and she's being asked, soon. Well, look, what some say the Ukraine was never a real country anyway. Others say, oh, look, the war will be over as soon as the Nazis are defeated. And I thought, wow. Now, having said that, Nazi and neo-Nazi ideology is not a white prerogative or a German prerogative. I mean, you can adhere to that, ideology as it applies to your own race. I mean, what I would say is happening in Israel is definitely the form of Nazism, if you will, in that racial kind of view against the Palestinians. So it can happen. But the Ukrainians, well, it's always it's usually predicated against the Jews as a standard thing. And I'm not saying it's impossible, but the president of the Ukraine is Jewish. He happens to be Jewish, and a whole bunch of other people in the Ukraine that are not Jewish, which are in fact they're Orthodox. They're Eastern Orthodox Christians. So it's a mixed bag. And to say they're Nazis, well, okay, who are they? Who are they prosecuting then? Ethnic Russians? Well, that's like prosecuting your cousin, because Ukrainian and Russian, while not exactly the same, is a very closely, or they're two closely related languages. Even the peoples are very closely related, from genetically speaking, if you will, right? So, okay, so they're Nazis, but whom are they being Nazis to? Is my question. Because you have to have a target audience. Target victims. Who are your target victims? Mm-hmm. It's not Russia, I don't think. Because that doesn't make it's like Germans, all of Germany, all of a sudden invading Bavaria. That doesn't make any sense. But so I'm a little bit at a loss. But anyway, so they're interviewing all these people. But you're quite right, Dave. You're 100% correct. They do not want to speak out against anything at all. It just doesn't happen.
Well, they wouldn't be crucified in the literal sense of the word, but certainly there'd be repercussions to either them or their family or both. Mm-hmm. And it's the same reason why the 3 scientists in Russia distributed their family amongst NATO countries. Believe it or not, the 3 scientists that made the hypersonic Russian weapon, they didn't keep their family in Mother Russia. They moved their families to NATO countries so they couldn't be touched. But that doesn't mean anything because, there's agents everywhere for every country, and good luck with that. Now those 3 scientists are in jail in Russia because their Russian missile was shot down by a Patriot missile.
Yes.
And
it's like
and China's not liking that, because I can't imagine they would like it, I should say. Because, hang on a minute, you said they were, untouchable, these missiles. Well, yeah, untouchable, destroyable. Well, it's the same, really.
Ish.
2 sides of the same coin.
This is ish. Untouchable-ish.
Sure they are. Yeah, so now that's pretty bad, and it's likely we might not see them. They're hopefully they surface again, and their families are still untouched.
Not in a lake somewhere.
They don't come to the surface.
Floaters. Let's hope. Or let's hope they're not anywhere near any windows that are open.
Or there's slippery floors and those open windows, Mackie. They're so dangerous. There should be signs.
Shouldn't there?
Yeah, they should. When you have a lino floor and your flatmate that's that's one of the people who share the house with you, polishes the floor with Mr. Sheen, thinking that's going to be great. And then in winter, with socked feet, we just saw a catastrophe. It didn't just start with myself, it started with one of the other people exiting their bedrooms into the hallway with this floor. It's immediately slid over. And so then we've all come out to see what happened, and we've all flipped over because it's a death trap. Lino and Mr. Sheen, what a perfect combination. Who knew? It had zero friction. Like the coefficient of friction became zero. So I sympathise for those people who have an open window at the end of their hallway, who have slid all the way down the hallway and then tumbled out of the open window, usually in winter. Because that's what you do. Have your windows open in winter, in a Russian winter. Yeah, because you like
it's
to.
nice and breezy.
It's crisp, that air.
Crisp. After a little while, your hair will be very crisp. Snap it off.
What is that, Joe?
I used to have like this. I was 15, maybe 14. I was sporting a rugged mustache.
Yeah,
it's not true, but it was a whiff of bum fluff. It was, but it was mine. It was mine, and I was.
You were proud as punch of that thing.
I took my bike to school, had my earmuffs on so my ears wouldn't freeze off. But wouldn't you know it, my mustache, at least the ends of it, had frozen solid, and they snapped off. It did. That's what happened. That's
wow.
What happens when you go to German schools in winter. But yeah, look, I know we make light of it, but it is so ridiculous what's happening, And it's almost it's not almost it's cliche.
Mm-hmm.
It's cliche. It is.
It's like a Hollywood version of the future.
Yeah. Yeah, not just the Russians, not just Putin. No, I'm talking about Biden.
Everybody.
I'm talking about.
That's right.
I mean, the whole Muppet Show. It's so cliched that, I mean, I wonder if this is not some kind of virtual reality we're all in. Now, well, brains floating in a tank. It's all just entertainment for some alien overlord.
Yep.
But I think the quality of the writing has really gone down. I might cancel.
There's a writer's strike at the moment, so
Yeah,
it's a work experience kid.
Can I please leave? This sitcom is not for me.
Where is this fourth wall? Where is it? I'm sure it's here somewhere.
Bring it, because it is really it's ludicrous. It really is ludicrous. I look around, and look, Dave, I don't need it too. And you know what the funny thing is?
Please,
nothing surprises. But nothing surprises it. Like, I'm not surprised by anything anymore. I might, raise my eyebrow, but not like, oh my goodness.
That's right.
What? No, not at all. Okay. What's happening now?
So to bring it home, I remember how our government was so upset with the Reserve Bank of Australia. They decided to put an overseeing body above it. Yeah. And all of the, Access Economics, and all of those companies had produced reports suggesting that inflation was better now. It seems to be becoming under control. And their analysis suggests that we should just let it ride another month or two, see how it progresses, and then look to see what we can achieve after that. But the RBA is now threatening, I suppose, in one way, suggesting they're going to rise the rates again next month, which is only 2 weeks away.
To what end?
Well, I still think that their goal is 7% retail price. Because that makes them comfortable that they've got the lever in the middle that they can then operate, back to normal, business as usual kind of lever. Because then they can reduce it again. They call it artificially low. No, they had to do it because the economy is so terrible. And they've borrowed so much money that there's no way out. And the only way for it to all get paid off is by us, by the consumer, everywhere, in every way, shape, and form. My argument here is that what I'm putting forward, my only surprise is, what do you mean they're talking about putting it up again? They haven't waited long enough to see what's going to happen. America is debating whether they're going to increase the debt ceiling. You mean put more things on the credit card, right? And if they don't, if America doesn't, it'll default on its debt. And that's it won't be able to make payments. Now, what happens if, the largest borrowed economy, let's put it that way, doesn't pay its debt? Armageddon? I don't know. Like, it's financial Armageddon. It's the fiscal cliff.
It is, and the knock-on effect. Okay, number one, it never happened before. That's number one.
Mm-hmm.
The largest economy in the world has never not been solvent. Okay, so, however, if they were defaulting, let's say they do, for argument's sake, all government services in the United States would stop completely.
Mm-hmm.
That means border control, export, import. That all just stops in the water.
No one's working for free.
Nobody's working for free. Now, corporations and all that, they still go on doing the merry way. However, the armed forces, law enforcement, lawmakers, and all that stuff,
Hospitals.
they're not getting paid.
Well, actually, hospitals are privatized. So,
most hospitals,
emergency services.
Yeah. I mean, as far as they're not privately owned emergency, because America is moving that way as well, as we all know.
That's right.
But if you look at it,
garbage collection.
So what's the knock-on effect? We can't change any laws. That's one thing. You can't pass any resolutions. You can't effectively govern the country.
Mm-hmm.
What happens if you can't effectively govern the country? Now, America is lucky in many ways because there's fairly strong local and state government in place. So if the federal, because we don't only talk about federal government here, everybody.
Yeah.
It's the federal government. Okay. So if the federal government shuts down, I think a lot of Americans would go, yay!
That's true.
The mail service, though, is federal still. That would break down, or breakdown would stop, potentially. And a few other things as well. So the impact would be significant, right? Now, what would other countries do? Now, the dollar would probably lose value, which has a knock-on effect on the stock markets. The consumer confidence in American companies, products, etc., would plummet. So we could see a fall on the stock market of American
goods. A devaluation of most stocks,
Yeah, and that could probably have a knock-on effect on other economies and stock markets too.
Well, whoever's bought into that is going to lose big time.
Yeah, and funnily enough, it's the Chinese. The Chinese are the single largest holders of American currency bonds in the world. By none. So they would see a significant paper loss on their holdings. So
there's a point.
It doesn't matter. Yeah. So these are all paper losses, everybody. Don't panic. Don't go selling stuff unless you really have to. So the knock-on, again, this is just off the top of my head. There would be much further and far-reaching consequences. There would be a general lack of confidence in the United States from their allies. Think about it. Let's say, Biden is now, hang on, let me just double check there. They're going to be in Japan now, are they?
What about all those billions we're giving them for the submarines?
Well,
and you go, what money?
Yeah,
the money I just gave you. What?
No, you must be mistaken. So, what we've got the G7 in Japan coming up, or maybe right now.
Yep.
Australia, interestingly, was invited to that. So they're all there doing whatever they're doing. But confidence in America as an economic or any kind of leader would drastically decline because, you can't even keep your own backyard in order, they would say.
That's right.
So, again, Dave, the ramifications would be significant. So there would be losers and winners everywhere.
Yeah, what is privatized? Garbage collection would be a very tough thing. I don't see that if there was a collapse, most airline companies also have stock, like they're floated on the exchanges, so they would all, I think it would come to a grinding halt. All of our petrochemical industry is there, all the mining industries are in the stock market. I think the collapse would be global. It wouldn't be isolated to the US. Everyone would be trying to recover or put a freeze. You'd see a freeze. Immediately, you'd see a freeze on the stock market. And everyone would register their request for it to be unfrozen or thawed. And then, boom, it's gone. Because they have those measures in place to stop collapses right now. And we would have collapsed a couple of times already.
You're right. See, Dave, I think you're right. I think the banks would stop trading as well.
Completely. They'd shut.
You can't have a bank run. Because that, I mean, as soon as you got some kind of this kind of thing happening,
fear
people want their cash.
Escalates out of control.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And then it's over. It shows how weak it all is. It's paper thin. It's a house of cards. And it's only there by consumer trust.
100%. It's also one other thing, Dave.
What's that?
Which is important. Two things. One, this is the more benign event if it were to happen. If a natural disaster struck in the United States, it would hamper the United States significantly not being able to deploy government resources.
Oh, true.
FEMA, etc. All right, so that's one. Two, and that was the benign example, everybody. The second one is, of course, if this, let's say this happens, for argument, let's spitball it here, right? So this happens, they're defaulting. This goes on for a week, 2, 3, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, whatever, however long it takes. At some point, the machine will be very hard to restart. It will take a long time to restart, but you can. But the point is, at that point, too many points, is that enemies or opportunists might come along and take advantage of the situation in whatever way we might see. It might be militarily, might be otherwise, but America would be exposed, especially if they can't pay for the military expenditure, because people have to get paid, right? It's very, it's, unless you turn communist and turn everything into state-owned, all the armaments manufacturing, etc., and you introduce conscription. Unless you introduce conscription. In America, I think they're allergic to conscripted soldiers, right? But unless you do that, it'll be very hard to keep an economy going that is at war. Okay. So that's the catastrophic example, Dave, if it were to happen.
Yeah. I just think about how many of the public services that are delivered by the government that would cease immediately, where people they're not going to do it for free.
Yeah.
So how many of those cease immediately is a really interesting point of note. So do you remember in Fifth Element when they're at the airport and the lady is booking them in, the ground crew, in the cubicle?
Yes,
and she says, I apologize for the rubbish. And they go, what rubbish? And she kind of points, and it's to the ceiling.
Yes.
And remember when there was I think it was the strike in New York, and the rubbish had piled up there, and it was causing disease. It had been so long.
Yeah.
We produce so much of the darn stuff that I suppose that at some point it would become a health hazard. And if they shut the banks, there's nothing. You're on your own. States could secede from the US and operate autonomously if they were lucky to have enough resources to continue. Texas is always one that I've always had a keen eye on.
Yeah.
I've got a fond liking for Texas, to be honest.
Yeah, Texas is a good place. It's a good place.
That in the Deep South, I like Deep South. But that on that kind of concept on its own, then you've got all of the nations that depend on the primary group of nations, say the G7, for instance. And if we saw if we saw any bad news come from the top, it's only going to be bad news for everybody else.
Oh, completely.
You know, isolation and isolationism, which I kind of support. I've supported it more and more. And COVID, I think, was the thing that taught me what we really should be doing. Don't outsource everything. You've got to be a pork chop to do that, right?
Yeah.
Outsource everything for $1. Ridiculous. And because then all of your economy is cored. You're asking someone else to do most of the work. And you just for a cheap item? It's rotten. Then they make all the money on it and you don't make anything, and you end up being Greece, where you just have a holiday economy. You don't actually do anything anymore.
You're right. And then look, we are, and the thing is this: people are still pork chopping along quite nicely, right?
Yeah.
As Dave said,
yeah,
we were hoping that people would see the light after this whole, COVID pandemic, etc., etc.
Manufacturing would be established in their respective countries, shortening the shipping and handling of goods from ground to retail. Shorten those. Don't make them go all around the world. What a waste of energy that is.
Do you remember when that ship got stuck in the Suez Canal?
Yes.
It had nothing to do with anything. It was not COVID. It was nothing. It was just someone not able to drive a ship.
Yeah.
And look at what that caused a massive
10,000 shipping containers, Mickey, were held up out of cycle.
Nothing had actually gone wrong except the guy not being able to drive a ship. Right? So
you've done this before, right? Sure.
Yeah. Okay. But we're talking about when things go sideways, like with the pandemic, right now, it's actually irrelevant if you believe that there was a threat or not. What matters is that they shut down everything. That's what matters.
Yeah.
Right? And because they shut down everything, we couldn't do anything. And we saw all of a sudden that our supply chain was fragile, extremely fragile. Then I had the Ukraine war now happening, and a whole bunch of people, especially in the Middle East, not getting actually all the way up to Indonesia, not getting their grain shipments.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? And energy supplies into Europe threatened or whatever. So that it doesn't take much. If you depend on other people too much, you will lose every single time. Because eventually someone is going to take advantage of the situation.
Yeah.
This whole idea that we're not rational players, internationally speaking.
No.
So one of the greatest failures of economic theory, almost every economic theory, is that
the belief that we are
rational players.
Yeah.
All economists assume that either you as an individual or even nation states or corporations or whatever act as rational players, which means they act in their own best self-interest, which is fine. That's not an issue. But that doesn't always happen. Right? And rational players also assumes that you've got a healthy state of mind, and your actions can be predicted. So if self-interest is your motivator, then I can pretty much predict what you're going to do, and that's okay from an economic point of view. That is no longer true, though. That is simply not true, because if you look at what's a simple example, if you look at what's happening in the Ukraine and Russia, okay, so I understand how it started. Putin said to his generals, "Hey, look, we really need to get to the Ukraine. Huh? Have another vodka, Igor. Now go get me the Ukraine." And Igor says, "Oh, boss, no problem. One weekend, huh? No problem." Okay. Reminds me of the movie, what was it? I think
you've heard of Blitzkrieg?
Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels.
That's right.
You said 5 minutes, 10 minutes ago, Turkish. No, but
I love that movie, by the way.
But then it didn't happen on the weekend. Okay, give it a month. It's over a year, and the Russians are persisting in the invasion.
Do you remember they ran out of fuel with their tank invasion?
They ran out of fuel. They ran out of ammunition.
That's right.
I mean, what? It's like World War II and Hitler and his brilliant ideas. No, but the thing is this. Now, if you were a rational player acting in your own self-interest, you would have found some way to save face, just and withdrawn or done something. But no, we're still in the middle of this quagmire, and the Ukrainians are getting stronger every turn. It's not like the Russians are getting stronger. The Ukrainians are getting stronger. They're getting all these weapons. They're getting fighter jets. They've got anti-aircraft missiles. They've got a whole bunch of stuff now they didn't have before. They have it now. And not only that, if you talk about self-interest, a couple of countries were pushed into NATO by this activity.
That's right.
They weren't part of NATO before, but now they are, and others want to join NATO as well. So it was a complete own goal that Putin managed to score here. But that's not even the worst, Dave. The concept of the rational player also applies to larger systems.
Yes.
Right? And because we have so many... Okay, Joe Biden, he's like 1,000 years old. North Korea, unpredictable guy.
Yep.
We don't know what Modi is going to do in India because he's hanging on by a thread. The Brazilian government is going from left to right, like so fast your head is spinning. Even the Canadians and the French, their politics are all flip-flopping all over the place. Italians haven't had a stable government for decades. And you look around, it's volatile. Even Israel, well, actually, not even, it's especially Israel. And it's volatility that we see everywhere. It's quite alarming if you think about it for a second. Sit down, think about it. So right now, the situation that we are facing is extremely serious, and I mean this in no joking way at all. This is a very serious thing.
In parallel to those, to add on a bit of a stacks on here, the amount of countries that are under military government or are flippy floppy, they're brand new, that you had an agreement with the prior government and now they've kind of ditched you. You don't want to enter into a new one with them because they're unreliable. And where, remember, like Fiji has a coup every 5 minutes, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So you don't want to enter into any agreement with them at the moment. You want to wait till you get a stable government. And so there's also that problem that we're having to deal with. Not Australia directly. We have some small nations that we team, I suppose, not partner with, in the South Pacific, and we've got agreements there that if their island goes underwater, we'll take them. But apart from those agreements, it's really tenuous.
Completely.
Now, I was talking today, Becky. I was talking today about Taiwan and the opportunity that they've had to stand up. Maybe it takes 5 years, 10 years, I don't care, to diversify or geographically diversify your manufacturing of chips. Yes, it's good for you now, but where are you going to go, right? And how quickly the world would be cut off from those chips because China's been cut off from those chips, the 100%. Same chips, right? And would be more likely to do the same to the rest of us. Just going, woohoo, look, we've got Gen 6 chips now, right? 0.1 micron. The rest of the world won't get it. We'll be like Cuba. We'll be re-engineering old stuff. Imagine Gen Tech not being able to get their next iPhone.
That would be unthinkable, my friend.
They're going to be beside themselves.
Look, we still have these people, and I'm sorry. I'm an Android guy.
Yeah, me too.
I just am, and for various reasons, mainly App Store. That's why the Apple Store, which just doesn't help me at all. But anyway, point is, we still have people that line up around the corner at the Apple Store in Sydney.
Yeah,
it's right on George Street, right? Around the corner to pay $2,000. I'm now lining up to give you $2,000.
Please take my money
for a telephone. But sorry, just on that, just as a hump on, there's quite a few exclusive shops in the Sydney CBD now, like, I don't know, Dolce & Gabbana, Versace,
that's right.
whatever.
Gucci, right?
And you now can only get in after lining up. So let's be bear with me here. You're going into a clothing or handbag store, whatever it is, to buy clothing or a handbag, but they won't let you in because there would be too many people in the store.
That's right.
You have to line. You have to line up. Now I understand if there's a jewelry store or a Rolex store, even I get why people would have to ring to get in. Because they probably want to eyeball you, because everything in the store is at least $10,000. Right?
That's
so I don't
right.
let you in, okay? So I'm sorry, you're not coming in. But this is clothing. I mean, what? And I know the margins in the rag rate in the rag trade, because I used to be back a long time ago. I used to work in that field. The market, okay. You know how you get a season of stuff comes in, right? Like let's say a blouse in every size, and in yellow and whatever, and there's like 100 of them on the rack in different sizes. Now, you know what the math behind this is? You only have to sell one of those 100 blouses to make money.
That's right.
One.
Yeah, one.
Anyway,
just the one.
But it's crazy, Dave.
Yeah.
We are. I mean, yeah. To your original point, the next generation out there now, never been disconnected, they wouldn't know what to do. They would. Maybe they go into shock.
They would be beside themselves.
Yeah.
I think they'd go into shock, and I swear, if you wanted to activate them in order to fight for anything, that is their currency.
Yes.
Think about that for a minute.
We fight for. Well, actually, in Ready Player One, I don't know if I read the book.
Oh, I haven't seen it yet. I still want to see it.
Oh, it is like, read the book if you can first, because it's a lot. Always is. So Ready Player One, but the movie as well. So, but the main protagonist, and I'm not giving anything away here because the first couple of pages of the book and first couple of scenes of the movie, he says his parents had been killed in the bandwidth ride of 22 or whatever it was.
Wow.
And yeah, no, right? It sets the scene, though. I'll tell you what, for the rest of the movie, quite nicely. They were killed in the bandwidth rides of whenever. Now that's insanity. But Dave, unless you want to add on something to the chip thing, I've got the most insane news item this week.
Please share it.
Now, bear in mind, we're living in a fairly controlled society. A lot of cameras around everywhere, right? Everybody's watching everybody all the time. It's very hard to get away with stuff, right? You'd think. Now, what happened? What happened in Australia? This happened last week.
This is the tasering.
That's it. Now, there's a 95-year-old lady in Western New South Wales, which is sort of inland. Which is 95. Like I said, she's got dementia, so she does have challenges in her life, right? And she's quite sprightly for her age, apparently, also good. But apparently, what happened was that she was carrying a knife in her old age residential home, and the staff panicked and called the police because maybe they weren't trained on how probably to deal with a person with dementia that has a knife or whatever. Now, nowhere does it say she was threatening anyone.
No, and she walked with a walking frame.
She walked with the walking frame. Now, this is the kicker here. Okay, so in order to deal with the situation, she was tasered. A 95-year-old woman with dementia in a Zimmer frame was tasered. Again, if I was writing a comedy movie, one of those really outrageous ones like American Pie or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think of a really
Woody Allen movie, for crying out loud.
Anything, right? They would go, no, Mackie, that's Dave. Mackie, what you doing, guys? This is too much. It's too far.
It's too far.
You can't do that. Now, this is the movie genre that has given us poop eating people, things like that, right? So, just to be funny, but this is too much. Now
it is.
This is the. But you know what really takes the cake?
She's fighting for her life in hospital.
Oh, sorry. Yes. So she fell and she sustained a head injury, and she's in a serious condition in intensive care in hospital.
Of course,
she's 95. Remember?
Yeah.
Okay, so
her bones like chalk.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, I know how that is.
They bounce like Dave as well. They bounce.
You bounce like Dave.
I'm going to read out to you the newspaper article I'm looking at because
All right.
I don't want to miss anything. So I'm going to read it out to you guys. A couple of lines. Just bear with me. So, police say Miss Nolan, that's her name, had moved towards them at a slow pace with a knife. Well, if I'm in a Zimmer frame, I'm moving at a pretty slow pace. Huh, she's getting away slowly. Okay, sorry. Slow pace with a knife. New South Wales Police Commissioner. Now, this is the person in charge of the police in New South Wales, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Karen Webb said, and this is what blew my mind, she was not sure why there was a call or why there were calls for the footage of the incident to be released. Now, you understand, like in America, our cops here wear body cams.
Mm-hmm.
But she wasn't sure why there were calls for the footage to be released. And I'm quoting now, I'm not sure why they want to see it, she told reporters at a press conference. And I'm quoting again. Body-worn video is subject to legislative requirements around the Surveillance Devices Act and other things. So it is not routine. And we don't intend to release it unless there's a process at the end of this that would allow it to be released. Ms. Webb said she had not seen the video, but had heard audio from the footage.
It's not true. She also... Yeah, go ahead. Continue.
Sorry. She said, this is the kicker, she does not see it necessary for her to view it. Go on. Have you been to the border?
We've been to the border. No, have you been to the border? I don't know what you're asking. Have you been to Europe? Yeah, I've been to Europe.
There is a border, okay? And we have been there, okay?
Yeah. So, and the correct answer would have been, look, I haven't, to be honest, but I am going, I booked there to go next week. And if you'd like to, reconvene the interview, sure, we'll talk then. How about that? That was the right answer. But anyway, so I think it might have been the chief of the police department that was led to that site. So it was the LAC, the commander, local area commander for that area, who said that he'd seen the footage and it was very disturbing.
Of course it would be. There's a woman in a Zimmer frame being tasered. I don't care if she's holding a machete, dude.
That's right.
Or a katana. She's in a Zimmer frame.
Remember, it's a very local proximity weapon. That's the thing that's really important here. And if you have more than one police officer, the other one only has to go round behind them. That's it.
But the thing is this. Before you do anything else, right, you target the Zimmer frame. You put something in its way, so she's stuck.
Yeah, that just bring some couches in.
Yes!
She's not going anywhere.
And the tragic thing, and this is the serious thing, and I mean this, and this is not a joke, but she was struck twice by the police.
Really?
In the back and the chest. Okay, yeah. Before she fell, but when she fell, she suffered a fractured skull and a serious brain bleed. Now, she's 95 years old.
Yeah, she may not recover from it. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're 20, this is a serious injury. Okay, if you're 95, this could be it. So
100%. Look, it's an overuse of force that a 90-year-old person isn't going to be able to out-strength a police officer.
Yeah. So, and I'm looking at her. She looks quite thin. She wasn't a big woman.
Frail.
Anyway.
Yeah. Sprightly, sure. Frail, yes. But anyway, so that's the status of where we're at. And they may as well just, have the SAS riot gear on if they're going to just use tasers to deal with everything.
Yeah, but Dave, now extrapolate. If they're willing to use a taser on a 95-year-old woman with dementia in a Zimmer frame, what would they do if you, God forbid, were found brandishing a baseball bat outside your house? Get the riot squad. Get the submachine gun. Get the 60 cal. Get the 60 cal.
50 cal. But that's fine.
Whatever. Any cal.
Any cal. Yeah. Likewise, if I was that person and I wanted to move from one part of the the facility to another to bring the knife to the table that I'd forgotten. We still haven't gotten to the bottom of why the person was carrying the knife.
I know,
It might have been a bread knife.
Yes.
Just the word knife doesn't assume that it's it's like Crocodile Dundee, where it's 1.5 feet long.
That's not a knife. That's a knife.
I
That's
see
not
you
a
played
knife,
Knifey
it's a
Spoony
spoon.
before.
You played Knifey Spoony?
Right? So you've got to establish each one of these points to then measure the severity against what was truly going on.
Yes.
I think they need to release that footage and audio in order for everyone to find closure on this.
100%.
But maybe they can't release it because that person, the police officer, will no doubt end up in jail for misuse of a weapon or something, right? I'm not saying it's going to happen. I just don't know, because there couldn't be a jury, Mickey. There could not be a jury in the world that wouldn't find the person guilty if the video showed that they were guilty.
Yeah, but look, I don't care whatever else happens or we find out. If you've got a 95-year-old subject in a Zimmer frame, holding a knife, clearly not being able to hold the knife to threaten you, but holding it and the Zimmer frame at the same time, I would imagine. That is something that is the use of this kind of force is not just excessive; it is completely ludicrous. I mean, I've done I'm still doing martial arts, right? And certainly you have to be respectful of weapons and all that.
Yeah,
don't get me wrong, but you learn how to disarm, and I expect the police that's out there in the world not to resort to weapons necessarily, right? I mean, sure, they don't want to put themselves in harm's way, and I get that, and I respect that, not an issue at all. But really, guys, a woman of advanced age in a Zimmer frame comes at you with a knife, and what the best response is to taser her twice. Let her fall to the ground, fracture her skull, and get her brain bleed. That's the way we do things now. Is it? I mean, it's just beyond the pale.
I'm 100% sure that even myself would be capable of either talking down the person, just sitting down in the room with him and going, look, let's just all sit down for a minute, right? Let's establish why you were carrying the knife. Let's have a look at. Can we examine the knife? Yeah, good, thank you. What was the purpose for this? And if they're outraged, why are you outraged? Are they treating you poorly here? Let's get to the bottom, the actual reason for it. Have it all on cam. Showed that you were the best police person that you could be, and that you did everything in your power to de-escalate the situation.
Yes. That's the key word, Dave. That's the key phrase you just used.
Absolutely.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Insanity. Because a few things. You can go blustering into a room demanding control as a uniformed police officer and get none of it, only to make yourself angry and everyone else angry. And you can make it escalate out of control where that someone will die of a GSW from your weapon, because you're not going to demand control just because you've got a hat on. We're still humans, and I do think, unless they're entirely irrational, that there's still a secondary way of being able to deal with it. Otherwise, and rather than pulling out TAS, that's the taser, right? Rather than doing that. And look, I feel sorry for them. I watch these videos all the time from around the world where police officers use excessive force where it wasn't necessary, and a conversation could have been all it took to de-escalate. And that's why I know that word is extremely important.
The thing is, I've never heard of this situation. Yeah, other situations, sure, they're equally.
I watched a deaf kid walk out of a 7-Eleven to be gunned down from behind. He just bought a slushie. Was going back to his car.
Wrong color, wrong place, man.
Wrong. They didn't even get to see his color. He didn't respond to their request to stop because he's deaf, right? And he was shot dead. And they didn't bother to make eye contact with them. Just didn't follow the person to the car. They didn't go into the store and say, "Is that the person that you wanted us to look at?" And they go, "No, the one that's got the gun to my head, you idiots." They didn't do any of those things, and a life is lost. And the police officer did not go to jail for that.
So how do we?
I got retrained.
Get to this place.
I had to sit through 2 hours of training for that to fix that up.
Oh, good.
But there are certain not all police, because my father was a police officer, and my father was a good man, right? And it just has to be, the situation has to be worked for what it is. You can't have a bad day and make everyone else suffer from your bad day. Reset, or say to your boss, "I'm sorry, man. I'm just not. I think I'm going to be inappropriate, right? And take a time out."
Yeah, 100%.
Right, just don't do that, because I think in this day and age where we're at right now, how fragile everything is, just like in Star Trek with Janeway and those out of phase aliens pestering them to produce endorphins that they could measure to see how angry people could get without breaking. It's almost where we're at now.
I think that's true. I think that's for real. I really do. But look, so this is where we are now. Because the thing is this: whenever I watch a movie, like, again, I go back to American Pie, right? When they pulled the humor and what they see on screen to a new level of, I think, what is acceptable, right? But every movie does it. So that, I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with the American Pie franchise, everybody out there. It's funny in a crude way, but each movie was cruder and pushed the limits more and more. So in the end, then it's just, oh my goodness, what's next, right? But now where we are in the world, so we've now seen this. So we had obviously the killing of several men, usually of color, recently. And now we had this tasering and potential killing of a 95-year-old woman in a Zimmer frame. My question is, what's next? Where this is? Are we now arresting 5-year-olds, and if they don't comply, we just taser them into cardiac arrest? Or 3-year-old, we shoot down a 3-year-old because he stole a lolly? Is that now the thing that's going to happen? Because I don't know what could be next, Dave. Or a pregnant woman. We should now beat up a pregnant woman because she didn't stop because the police called on her to stop. Is that where we are?
It is, because the music's just about to start. And of course, there's the music. That's the end of the first hour. Coming back, we're going to be talking about the Third Reich and the Occult, Part 9. If you listen to this on YouTube, this video ends, and you'll have to pick up the new video.